What is up, people? We're back with Down the Middle Podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Namal.
I'm Ian.
Special guest back again. We haven't moved since we recorded the video you just watched. That I hope you just watched. We're actually in the same spot.
You might be lying.
You'll never know. You have to employ an AI to find out if we're lying. Say I do that? Lie detector? We get one from Nancy Pelosi?
You might be able to make a lie detector, but not
be effective
so far. I don't know. It might be effective.
That's a new project.
That's a tough project. It's you'd have to do some sort of audio recognition stuff. It's not easy.
He's gonna get started on it.
Or maybe I'm sorry. Just an interesting question about that. And also for example, Tesla's LiDAR sensors, right? So do you think those LiDAR sensors could pick up on body language, and then maybe you could based on body language
what sensors? The LiDAR?
LiDAR sensors.
LiDAR sensors are not. They're just lasers. They're just.
Yeah, but do you think they could pick up on body language while people are lying, and maybe make a lie detector out of that, or is that too complicated?
It's not what LiDAR sensors are for, really.
Okay, so can you explain LiDAR sensors real quick?
LiDAR. I mean, they're not like scanners. Like I think that's what you think it's like a scanner. It's not a scanner. It's just like a LiDAR, literally just like something like that, and just shoots out little light rays, and that's it. It just detects like when it hits something. It's literally just for like object detection.
Object detection, but not motion. Object motion.
I mean, they fire so much you can kind of build motion out of it, but it's there's nothing like it doesn't learn like that sensor doesn't. It's just a beam of light. It doesn't really do anything. Just like
that sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Also Tesla famously doesn't like LiDAR sensors. Actually, If there's a video on, if you look it up of YouTube on Elon Musk talking about it, he actually like hates LiDAR sensors. He thinks they're useless.
Elon Musk hates like a lot of stuff. Yeah. He publicly comes out and he just says, "Yeah, I hate this."
But the only reason he thinks they're useless is because the use for them nowadays is for self-driving cars. They're used for the object detection of the self-driving cars to see how far away things are. But the way Tesla does their self-driving cars is they operate almost entirely on computer vision. They have a camera, and they use AI to kind of take that camera video feed and have it drive like a human would drive, like seeing what's in front of it, learning what a stop sign is, what humans are, and stuff like that. Not having it drive like kind of a robot where it uses this LiDAR to detect where things are and drive based on that. It drives using, this video.
And actually, about that,
interesting stuff.
Yeah. This is the longest intro to a video ever. But about that,
we didn't even get an intro yet.
I was watching a video today about they had set up a self-driving truck with these sensors, and the sensor there was a sensor on the side too, and a truck was coming to collide at the side of it, and the AI wasn't used to trucks coming from the side. It was about highway driving, so it's used to the front and the back. It's not used to one truck like this and one truck like this, and it thought it was a road sign. So the collision happened, and just like a test of these things.
So that's what. So AI, right? It learns. It learns through given experiences. And like you said, right, if it's not used to seeing, if it sees something completely new, the AI will not know what to do unless it's seen something in a similar fashion, right? We're talking about the kind of the game playing algorithm later. That's a fixed environment. It can learn. It can learn how to do moves, even if somebody does something it hasn't seen before. But for something like a self-driving truck, the environment is ever changing. AI is very good with it's a fixed environment, right? You know all the variables.
Yeah.
With a ever-changing environment, it's difficult, right? You have something like, if the truck has literally never seen anything, never seen a truck coming to the side of it, like no amount of training, like, on highway driving where it doesn't see that, it's going to have it figure out, okay, like, I'll learn how to do something completely new. That's not what AI is good at. It needs experience. It needs to learn from experience, but the experience has to be related to it. Like if it's something completely new, then it's just not. It won't work. If it's new but within some sort of fixed environment where it kind of knows what's going on, it will be able to do something.
Now that's a good segue, because when we talk about fixed environments, talk about unpredictable variables and the ability to adapt, there's a big differentiation between what AI can do and what the human mind can do. As humans, we are exposed to our worlds and we learn to adapt very quickly. We have to. And now that's why this video we're talking about the automation of jobs. And that point right there kind of advocates more for the human side of things, that, hey, you need to adapt quickly, you need to be able to prepare for a bunch of things, and the human brain is very capable of doing that quickly. Sure. So I'm going to pass it to you, because when when people discovered the car, they thought horses would go extinct. So people are always worried about the next technological advancement, and this is going to make this crazy change. AI is no different.
Yeah, so basically, automation has been a huge focus point, and it made a lot of people believe that it would lead to mass unemployment. But basically, automation really replaces jobs that are repetitive, physical, and requires less intelligence to really complete. So, but there's been a huge kind of historical theme that we've been seeing. The first time that we've experienced this hysteria with automation was in the 1920s, late 1920s and 30s. That's when a lot of manufacturing was coming about. A lot of jobs like, you know how we have the turnstiles for trains now? They have the people that collect the tickets. There used to be people that closed train doors, open and closed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they still have it in China, actually.
Oh, wow.
But some jobs like that. So those kind of phased out. So, but the thing with that is the amount of jobs that were there were still at around 8%. Even in the 1920s. So while they phased those jobs out, more jobs were created, which is a common theme that we still do see. Then another example of that same theme would be in the late 50s and the 1960s, where computers were used, and then more, of course, automation. So jobs, so I have a couple stats. So also in those times, around the 50s and 60s, around 8 million farmers were displaced, 7 million factory workers, 1 million railroad workers, 100,000 telephone operators, gas pumpers, elevator attendants, and travel agents. So, but you could see within the graphs around those times that within the U.S., the employment rate was at least 80%, and they of course, mass unemployment and lead to recession, but those numbers never hit those points. That would be around 60 to 70%, that range in a recession. So I just want to know Ian's thoughts about that. Are we warranted to think that it may one day lead to mass unemployment in regards to AI?
Because Joe Biden says that we all need to learn how to code, and that everyone should learn how to code, and we should make this mass transition away from the way we've always existed to
and become AI bots.
Basically, we can all just have our own personal AI who just goes and does our job for us while we just sit back and just
program it. I mean that would be
an interesting society.
It'd
be like WALL-E, but like
WALL-E, but it works.
We'll be the fat guys in the house, and then our AI bots would be
That's a good
outside.
Idea, for a movie.
But
I would name mine Dak.
Dak?
Yeah, I like that. I love that name. That's a cool name.
Yeah.
Not because Dak Prescott. I just think I just like it.
Nah, that's fair.
It's cool.
Yeah, I'm naming mine.
Or Anakin. I'm naming it Anakin. I take it back. You can take Dak. Anakin.
You can take Dak. Nobody said they wanted Dak. But yeah. So going back to that question.
So,
should we fear mass unemployment?
No. Well, in a short answer, no. More complicated answer is AI is definitely going to take over jobs in the future. But for the job that takes over, it will create new jobs. Like you said, all those advancements in the old days, the creation of a car, sure, that got rid of horses, but it opened up jobs of factories that create these cars. Now in the future, it's creating like jobs for create self-driving cars, right? It's you build off of it, and new jobs come about from that.
Right? Yeah, the mass hysteria is usually never justified. Society adapts. Always.
Sure, but that's not to say that jobs aren't at risk. Sure, like if certain jobs are like, let's say like a barista job, right? That's plausible. Like baristas are a little more difficult. You have to like kind of get the stuff. Cashier jobs, that's a very plausible kind of a thing, right? If you have an AI that can just the grocery store, you just kind of AI that can just scan your stuff and calculate the cost and just say, okay, this is your total. Like, you don't need the cashier anymore.
I think about a lot of the jobs I've had. I did janitorial services, and you have the Roomba, which is a little AI bot. And you have, I've done check-in at the gym. Why the heck do you need a human to check into the gym? Like,
sure,
they don't do anything.
Swipe cards in your own.
You sometimes just walk in at the Y. We used to sometimes there would be no one there. I'm not.
Hey, we didn't do
anyone's job. I'm not. You guys are safe. I love you guys. But the idea is that like high-skilled practicing jobs where you need that, you have a lot of skill, you have a lot of movement, and you take a lot of time to learn it, versus jobs that are just standard protocol, cashiering, checking into the gym, cleaning. These are the jobs that the latter are the jobs that are more heavily affected by and kind of artificial intelligence revolution.
Sure, but some of those jobs, like you said, like a cleaning job, you've seen those little Roombas that go around. They can do stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that they can't do. They can't dust your whatevers. They can't get into the little crevices. They go where their little cylinder body can go.
Yeah.
Right. It can't mop the floor. Right. There's limitations, and the general rule for what for robotics and AI versus what can they do well versus what humans can do well, and this is a very loose general rule. This does not apply for everything. Is if a human can do it relatively easily, it's very difficult for a computer to learn how to do it. If a human cannot do it very easily, the computer can do it very well. The easy example is if I told you to calculate 10 times 30 times 40 times 200, right? You're not gonna be able to do that instantly, right? I suppose you could try.
I'm not gonna try it.
Sure. Get the fingers out. We'll count it.
I'm not gonna try it.
We're here for politics. I say this all the time. We're here for politics, not math.
Well, you put the wrong person on for this.
All right. Well, it's been nice having you. All right.
But a computer can do that very easily. It can, it's a calculator. Everybody has a calculator. Have it on your phone. Pretty easy. If I asked you to move this water bottle from here to put it on,
just throw it at Phil.
Yeah,
just throw at him.
Right, just throw. Honestly, right? So if I told you to take this water bottle and throw it at somebody, it's pretty easy, right? Like, you can get it somewhere in the vicinity. You might not hit him, but, whatever, it's over there.
I could probably hit Phil from here.
I think you would knock over, all of our stuff, though. Is that one of the restrictions?
No.
Oh,
that's allowed.
Okay.
But it's very difficult to get, just pick up this water bottle, throw it.
Yeah.
Very difficult for a robot to do that. It requires a lot of intense movement.
Yeah.
Like very small, intricate movements that are difficult to learn. AI, automation is good when you see these factories. It's like, okay, assembly line, just move part here, move it to the next person, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult for it to do. So that's why I say, barista job is not a great example actually, because you have to learn the order, and that's the part the AI could probably figure out, how to take somebody's order, learn it, and figure out what it needs to do to put that drink together. Actually getting it to put the drink together, moving it, putting it in, getting a latte, whatever coffee ready, putting in the squirts of vanilla, pumpkin, caramel, whatever the fuck you put in nowadays.
It could be like a mini assembly line within that whole Starbucks.
But is it worth making it, those are expensive, right? To create a little mini assembly line.
Yeah.
And AI is not at the point where you can create a little robot to move and do it. The movement is very difficult for robots. So it's funny, you can actually look up on YouTube. There's Penn has this kind of a little robot soccer team, and this is state of the art, just put in this year, the best of its kind. And if you watch these little robots play this game of soccer, they play against other little robots, and they're
I think I might have
little
seen
this tall robots. And 90% of the time, they just fall on their face. They just fall straight down, and they just flail.
That's like real soccer.
Okay. Similar. That's a problem. That's a sports discussion for another day. But you see these robots, it's hilarious. They're just falling on the floor and flailing. And you see there's other YouTube videos you can just look up kind of state of the art humanoid robots is what I'm saying right? Because if you want AI to take over jobs, you kind of need a humanoid-ish robot. Look at these humanoid robots do simple tasks like learning to walk. Hilarious. It is so funny. It's like a toddler learning, right? They literally just fall on their face all the time. It's great. But you see that video of the little Penn robots playing soccer. They get in the goal, but it's about as good as a 3-year-old playing soccer. Right? A 3-year-old playing soccer would probably win. It's hard to get it to do that movement. What AI is much better at is the things that aren't movement. So the one example I give is game playing algorithms. That is where AI has made a huge strides. So you've all played chess, right? Or
chess,
or a game called Go
or Shogi.
Okay, yeah, or Othello.
That's in Naruto. Shikamaru.
Shogi?
You know the game Shikamaru plays with his dad?
Oh, that's Shogi?
Yeah,
Oh.
it's Japanese chess.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what it's good at is learning how to. And this is also relatively new. A lot of this AI stuff is only made advancements in the last few years. So what is now state of the art. If we had this conversation 5 years ago, it'd be an AI that can play chess. yeah, you know,
Come on,
it might do
man.
okay, but like it'll
Come
never.
on, man.
Embarrassing.
Yeah,
I don't think that could beat me.
It's never gonna beat, you know, Grandmaster
Just unplug it.
Dolgi Kamyshev in Russia, right?
You just make the name up.
Yeah, you know, yeah, I watch fucking chess. That's what I do in my spare time.
Disrespect.
Yeah. But
now,
so now that there's this Google created this algorithm called AlphaGo, and AlphaZero. The version that plays Go is called AlphaGo. And what it does is it can just play. It can play chess or something. Chess, Go, any one of these like board games better than anybody else. So now it can. There was a match, I think. One of the best Go player in the world played this AI and lost 4-1. The best. It has not lost to a chess player, right? It beats all these grandmasters, like, and it just wrecks them. Like, they can't win because this AI is just so good at playing this game. And that's what I go back to with like AI. It's very good at doing things that humans have trouble doing. It's very difficult for a human to see a board and strategize, right? Because you always hear this thing about chess players thinking like, you know, hundreds of moves ahead.
Yeah.
That's hard, right? But for a computer, it's like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what to do. You know, that's easy, right?
Yeah.
It's thinking, you know, 300 moves ahead. That's what it can do things like that.
There's
and that's
definitely I just want to say there's definitely a Dolgi Koma chef working on the Russian pipeline right now. So you just gave him a huge shout out. We're here for you, Dolgi.
Oh, that's my boy, Dolgi.
But I think that like one of the differentiations between that I was studying today was in terms of the medical field. When we're talking about healthcare treatments for patients, deciding what that treatment should be based on an analysis of their conditions is very easy for AI. More difficult for a human because you have to look at all the preconditions, all the contraindications for what you can do for this patient. Then the actual treatment of that patient is much better for a surgeon or.
So a good example in the medical field is again, it goes back to like anything that's mechanics related. Anything that involves mechanics, AI is not at the point where it's just going to be able to replace intricate movements, like human movements. And I can discuss, you know, kind of like how it learns to move, but that's a different thing, right? So for something like a surgeon, we're never going to be at a point, at least I don't think, like anytime soon, where an AI can come in and you say, okay, perform heart surgery, like a heart transplant, and it can just go in there, you know, take the heart out, move it in, because it's not like a fixed thing. It's not like, okay, you know exactly, you know, where to move. Like everybody's heart is like a little different, everybody's body's a little different, and it's such intricate. If you mess it by a little bit, like it's like, okay, if your heart is like 1/10 bigger, like, you know, 0.0001% bigger than a normal, like the heart that the robot has learned to do, then it's gonna it's gonna puncture where it thinks it's like, you know, cutting in like a vein. It's like actually cutting your heart. So that's difficult. What it's good at, and now one application of AI is for medical imaging. It can take images and be able to detect things like cancer within that medical image, within that X-ray, right? And that's difficult for a human. You can't just look at a thing and be like, oh, I know exactly where it is. But for AI, it's, you know, these computer, you know, these image recognition things are so good now that it can look through them, identify where the cancer is, and operate. This is all state of the art stuff, and, you know, not 100% effective either. Otherwise, you know, it would be everywhere. But that's kind of where we're going.
And I just want to comment on going back to the whole unemployment and unemployment workforce. As you guys have both been saying, like, there are definitely some limitations to AI. Sure. And it's easy to see how jobs can be taken away through AI, but there's also the flip side of that, and how jobs are created through not necessarily AI but innovation.
Yeah.
So, and the way, because after the 20s, like I was speaking about, and after the 50s, we were still able to keep that production up as well as workforce. And you have to also realize that new jobs also have to formulate to keep the new technology or advancements up.
Right.
So now more jobs are created, and now even more industries are created just to uphold those type of things.
Yeah,
I have the number 54 million in terms of new jobs that have been created since the 50s, 60s times that you're talking about. It's 54 million new types of jobs that were created because of this. That's an insane number.
And to your point, like you're saying, it's not always like you're saying that like Biden says, everybody should learn to code. And these, just because these are high technological advancements, doesn't mean that all the resulting jobs are going to be technological, right? Like the introduction of power lines is an extremely We got Phil.
Shout out to Phil.
That's Phil.
Power Extra, right? Televisions, computer, the internet. This is all like electricity. That's technological advancement, right? But you don't need to know all the intricacies of it, how it works to set up these power lines, right?
Yeah,
And you need people to set these power lines up. So
Phil, you ready to be on site with an AI?
They actually tried that in Japan and it didn't work out.
I think you were talking about that, right? The Japan experiment.
no, not that.
Oh, okay.
It's too complex. They can't figure it out when I get up there.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, for pipeline specific, they tried it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
The power
movement.
lines.
It's complex stuff, right? And being able to figure it out is one thing. Being able to actually get an AI that can learn to do that is difficult. So, and one of the big advancements in AI now is this thing called like reinforcement learning, and that's how you get robots to kind of learn movements. That's what we were talking about before. That's how that game playing algorithm works. You just give it a goal. And it kind of does some actions, learn. It gets a reward. It gets some feedback on how well it did, and then we'll slowly learn how to do it. So that's how they'll learn how to take this water bottle, move it from here to here, right? It'll just struggle. It'll get some feedback until it eventually learns how to pick that thing up, and then it'll struggle some more, and then learn how to move it over. The game playing algorithm works in a similar way. You'll have this algorithm that just like. Sure, the first few times it plays, it's like just doing like random moves. It's just gonna be it's bad, but it gets feedback as it goes, and then it learns a little bit how to do certain moves, and at a point, it will learn how to play, and then it'll learn how to get good.
Mm-hmm. So from at least from what we've been talking about so far, it looks like AI the biggest restriction would be movement. And if it wasn't for movement, I think we'd be able to do a lot more things with AI. So in your opinion, I just want to ask you, how far away are we from being able to create that movement? And if we eventually do get to that point, do we now have fears of unemployment or anything like that? Or that would shift the I guess like how the workforce is divided?
Cool, that's a good question. So my expertise, is not necessarily in the actual movement. I know a little bit about it, but that's robotics. That's a separate field. That's getting it to learn. I know how to I'm on the programming side of it. I mean how to get it to learn the algorithms they use to have it figure the things out. But the actual implementation of creating a robot that can learn, that can actually do this stuff like the circuits and all that stuff is beyond my realm. So I don't really know how close robots are to that point, but I can tell you, from what I've seen, you just look up YouTube videos. It's got a ways to go before it can emulate human movement. It can do other things like drones, like that's robotics, and you can do a lot with those drones, and you can program them to do a lot of cool things. But if we ever got to a point where robots can just emulate like a human's actions and movement, you just like you get to the point where you tell a robot, it's just like, oh, go take this water bottle, put it over there, and it like knows how to. It understands your language. First, understands your request, right? Because that's more my my side, right? And then it has to take that request, process it, learn it, and then transfer that to the correct movements. And that's less my expertise is like getting it to actually move, getting it to actually like do those movements. I could kind of learn,
right?
Help it learn how to do it, but actually implementing that movement is very difficult, beyond my expertise.
And speaking of what you said, you mentioned about how it can. There's a distinction. It's not going to affect us all equally at the end of yours. And just some stats, because you talk about movement versus, and there are certainly jobs that emphasize movement a lot more. And there are jobs that emphasize more a type of sitting, thinking type of atmosphere. So movement jobs, I would associate them more with a rural atmosphere. Like these jobs that involve you to be out working with your hands. And those are the jobs that are going to be tougher to replace for AI. And there are certainly, just to kind of advocate for the fact that against the mass unemployment. Because those rural jobs, those low skill, there's skill, but those low wage more jobs, there is a difference between... it's a weird study, but it kind of represents how they look at the technological revolution that we're in. And in rural communities, adults have a 24% issue with internet. Their internet is effective far less. In urban communities, it's only 13%. There's 11% difference in how urban communities look at their internet versus how rural communities argue with it. And in terms of the high skill practitioner jobs, there's a huge difference between urban communities and rural communities in terms of earning a bachelor's degree, because that's usually the measure we use to say if you're going to get a high skill job, you got to make it through college. 14% difference in the favor of the urban communities. So there may not be a necessity for those people who will potentially be more marginalized because of an AI revolution. There may not be a necessity because of, like you say, their jobs emphasize movement a lot more.
Right. It's to kind of wrap back around to what Namal asked. If there was a point where, the AI could do, kind of that robot could do all of that stuff, yeah, then sure, a lot of jobs would be at risk. I don't think we're at that point. I don't think we're going to be at that point for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's that's very far in the future, I think. Getting human movement is not an unlocked field. And
a question I want to bring to you about it, in terms of a cost basis type of ideology, because you have this stuff there are upsides to implementing it, but it's also very, very expensive. Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it would be worth it to spend that extra money? We were talking about planes. Right. And the AI plane could potentially be more effective than a human piloted plane, but it's going to cost a lot more. Yeah. Do you think that on a cost basis method that's worth it?
So that's the thing. So I think the more we develop technology, the less it'll be. The less it'll cost, because we have the technology to have
it's
that.
So new right now. It's
exactly.
So expensive. Yeah.
So right now, like for anything, it goes throughout every historical context or theme that we've developed. Any type of new technology is very expensive at the stage when it's developing at first. But when we progress into where it's properly incorporated into society, we've reduced the costs of that technology, and we've been able to mass implement it. And that goes through any type of innovation we've had. Mm-hmm. So in regards to AI, it is more of it's not like creating a light bulb, because light bulb, it's like an invention, but AI is more of like obviously a much more intricate type of thing. Yeah. But if we eventually get to a point where it is more cost beneficial to, for example, have like an assembly line at a Starbucks, I don't see Starbucks not implementing that into their locations if they can save more money and have more of a higher profit margin. Yeah.
What we speak about is that these big CEOs and these corporations and nations, they care about money and money first. So money, it does get to that point where
money's the root of pretty much all the major decisions.
Exactly. Yes.
So,
and your thoughts on that? Do you think like a potential timetable in terms of when that cost would reduce to the point where we could see like mass implementation of this?
It's extremely hard to job automation, things like that. It's gonna be a while. I don't think if you're working at a in a barista job or a cashier job, that's a little closer, because that doesn't necessarily require movement. You just listen to the order and put it in, and you don't even need AI to do that. Honestly, you just have a computer, you just put your order in. But things like barista jobs, any sort of like electrician job, anything like that, a long time. I think it's we've got a ways to go before any robots taking over any sort of job in that kind of.
And like jobs where you don't have to do much at all, kind of like the president of the United States. Those are the ones that you probably see.
AI will take over soon.
Yeah.
President bot.
Yeah. Oh, did I say that? I said that out loud. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Joey. I'm sorry.
Don't censor us, please.
But in terms of that, I think that I have said pretty much everything. Job automation is, just like you say, we're optimistic about it. There's a huge upside to all of this, and we will adapt as a society. But this is also a type of new animal where when this is a huge technological innovation, this is huge stuff that is a lot bigger from like the pencil to the pen. But this is
something to think about, right? Like it's if you're 55 and you're almost retired, you'll be okay. Yeah.
But Ian said right. You cashiers, you better go into work tomorrow and sign a contract with your manager, because
10-year contract.
If you're 20,
10-year contract, $13 minimum wage an hour. You better sign that.
There are risks. You're 25, 30, and you're working as a cashier job. You could see in your lifetime maybe that job becomes automated.
Mm-hmm. I'd be excited for that.
Right.
Just to kind of see this take place.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty amazing technology, and I'm definitely excited to see. I think we'll definitely see a lot of advancement in our lifetimes because we're still on the younger side. But yeah, we'll just see where it goes, and go from there. Pretty
The
much.
next video feeds off of that idea. We're talking about our fears for the future, where this is going to go, and yeah, just like we're just going to talk about how Ultron is a reality, and soon we are all going to be just taken out. So
And be a part of Wall-E too.
yeah, Wall-E is going to come into fruition as well.
Yeah.
So catch that in the next video. We will see you guys soon. Peace out.